Hi, everybody. It's your $2 Tuesday movie critic. I hope this week, or rather this year of 2018, has been treating you wonderfully. I've been doing well myself, and I wanted to take a moment to just review some of the movies that have been nominated for Oscars for 2018. I want to try and get to all of them, at least before the Oscars. Today is the 25th of February, and the Oscars come on this upcoming Sunday, or on the 3rd of March. So what I wanted to try and do is to give a review of all the movies that are up for nominations, or as many as I can before the time comes. You know, some movies are up for more than one nomination, so that kind of helps. All right, so there were 9 movies up for Best Picture nominations, and I'll just go down the list real quick. Call Me by Your Name, Darkest Hour, Dunkirk, Get Out, Phantom Thread, The Post, The Shape of Water, Three Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri. All right, so those are 3 that are up for Oscar nominations for Best Picture, and then some of these up for multiple nominations. So what I wanted to do was review them. Now, I'm going to review first, and then I'm going to go over what were the other nominations. My review I'm going to start with is Dunkirk. Now, Dunkirk takes place on the beach of Dunkirk, and it is a period piece, and it's also a historical piece. It is a true story of the Allied forces, mainly British and French forces, that are trapped on the beach of Dunkirk during World War II. Now, this was in 1940, and somehow or another, it doesn't really go into details about how they got trapped. It just talks about how they are trapped at that moment, because the movie starts with seeing soldiers, and one soldier in particular who meets and befriends another soldier who does not talk, and we later find out why. But these guys pretty much befriend each other quite quickly, and some would think, okay, that can't be happening. But when you're in a wartime situation or any type of tragic or extreme situation, it is very easy to form a quick bond, especially when you think you two are, helping each other survive. Anyway, so the movie itself, I found, and I have to give full disclosure here, I don't like war movies, and this did not change my mind at all. I did not like this movie. I found it to be quite boring, and I will tell you why. But first, let me tell you what I found about it interesting. The movie has 3 stories going on simultaneously. There is the actions that are happening, and I use the word actions very loosely, because there's not much of that going on in this movie. I think they tried to make it a bit too real, and in doing that, they took away a lot of dramatic effects and too much action, in my opinion. So, what's happening is you see what's going on land, on the beach of Dunkirk, to these soldiers as they're trying to survive the enemy forces in the air, trying to not only destroy their equipment but also kill them. And that's the other story, what's going on in the air. And while these enemy forces are doing this, troops have been called, Allied forces also in the air, to come to destroy them, because there are no other forces except these forces in the air, enemy forces in the air, that are trying to destroy these soldiers and their equipment and everything, and any type of transportation that they try to use to leave the beach. And then you have the story that's happening in the sea. Now, the story that was happening in the sea is actually the most interesting story to me out of all 3 of these, because it deals with the aspect of, because these big ships are being destroyed anytime they try to take these troops away from Dunkirk, that the command sends message back to the locals closest to Dunkirk that they are needed. And when I say locals, the people that own little boats and things like that, or to come to Dunkirk to help to extract the soldiers from this beach. Now, I think that they could have focused more on this story that was happening. They only really, even though they showed quite a few boats and locals coming to the help, they only really talked or focused on one boat and the people in that boat. And fortunate enough, there were quite a few interesting things going on there as well. And that was my most memorable part of the story, and the part that really captured my attention, because the other parts, for the most thing, everything was just happening over and over again. People were getting shot. The ships were being destroyed. The planes were fighting against each other, and everybody pretty much looked like everybody else, especially on the ground. All of these soldiers, with the exception of possibly the command, were young boys. They were like in their either their late teens or their early 20s. They were young boys, and they were not very, not very gung-ho. Of course, they didn't want to be there. Who wants to be in a war? But they knew they had to be there, and they knew they had to survive Dunkirk. And, in the end, a couple of the scenes actually looked like they could be from the movie Lord of the Flies. If you've ever seen that, you know what I'm talking about. So I just honestly, with no respect to the soldiers that went through this or the people that helped them, I kept asking myself, why was this a movie? And I thought that it just was way too boring, way too long, and it didn't have enough dramatic effect or enough action to hold attention. Thankfully, I watched this on demand. I wasn't in a movie theater, so I could pause it when I needed to, just to, walk away for a minute and say, okay, or look to see how much more time I had to watch it. It was just that boring to me. And I mean, no disrespect to any of the soldiers that went through this. I think the movie is boring. The situation itself that really happened, I'm sure that had nothing to do with boring, and I'm glad that people survived that and that the locals came and helped these soldiers to survive that. That being said, I don't understand why this was a movie, and if it was a movie, why it couldn't have been done better. And I don't understand why this is a Best Picture nomination, especially looking at a lot of the other movies that were Best Picture nominations. And the only thing, and these are the only two things that I came up with. One, it was made into a movie because of the young soldiers aspect. A lot of these soldiers that were in this movie, or the actors that played these soldiers, were, I think some of them were like in a boy band, one or two of them. Some of them are young actors that are just starting out, and they wanted to give them their each a moment, their own moment. And that really didn't happen, because the main two soldiers that they focused on, one didn't even talk, and the other one was pretty much just trying to protect him and keep him alive. And that in itself was rather boring, because, again, same thing kept happening over and over again. So, yeah, that part. And then also the part where it just was, you have also, the reason I think it was nominated for an Oscar was because it was a war movie. It seems a trend now that anytime there's a war movie or a movie about a soldier, it's going to be up for a nomination. And I honestly, I'm not quite sure. I can't say specifically for sure, but I think this was the only war movie that kind of like made the 2018 cut. And I think that's kind of crap. If you're going to choose movies and say these are the best of the best, in our opinion, they should really be the best of the best. And in my opinion, this was not. I could have seen so many other movies taking its place that were much better. in my opinion. So, and this kind of what I wanted to look at real quick. Compare this movie to two other movies. One was the movie No Country for Old Men, and the other was Gravity. And the only reason I say that was because both of these movies were nominated for Best Picture Oscars. Actually, No Country for Old Men won. I saw both of these movies after the fact of the Oscar nominations, and I was really excited, especially about Gravity, because I love Sandra Bullock, and everybody was like, "Oh, the movie is great." At least everyone in the acting world, because they're pumping up Sandra Bullock. The movie Gravity came out, and let me see, where was it? Oh yeah, the movie Gravity came out in 2013. And it was up for the 2014 came up the 2013 Oscars, and it happened to not win, but a lot of hoopla behind it. And then there was the movie No Country for Old Men, and this came out in 2007, and it actually won for Best Picture. Now, both of these movies, in my opinion, were awful, but they were not as awful as Dunkirk. Dunkirk, and none of them had bad acting. The acting was great. I could appreciate the different effects with the movie and all of that. It was just Dunkirk was extremely boring. And the other two movies, I don't know how they were the best of anything, because I kept saying, and I wasn't the only one, especially I saw Gravity on a video, so I was by myself for that. But when I talked to people later, some other people had the same, were in agreement with me that this movie was like, okay, why? And then as I was leaving the movie theater, when I saw New Country for Old Men, everybody that I talked to, or everybody that I heard talking about this movie, was like, I just wasted, what was it, 2 hours on this movie. Because it was awful. But again, not as awful as Dunkirk. And it was just because it was so extremely boring. So extremely boring. Anyway, so Dunkirk is also up for an Oscar for, let's see here. I'm not surprised that it wasn't up for an Oscar for Best Actor, Actress. There weren't any women really in there of significance. You saw nurses and things, but I don't even think they talked in the movie. They were just there to show. They were helping. And as far as acting and this, again, everybody with the exception of the command looked the same. Nobody had any really dramatic moments or anything like that. So I'm glad at least they didn't do that. So Dunkirk, oh wow, I don't think it was up for anything else. Oh, Best Original Score, which I also found boring. So, but that is me. That is me. Some people might have liked it. I did not. It was also up for Best Cinematography, which I have to say, it was good cinematography, but it was the beach. So it's easy to make, it's easier, I should say, to make the beach be bland looking with that gray effect to it, and that normally happens in bleak situations and a bleak atmosphere. I mean, it's the sand. It has, unless you have, to keep the clouds and stuff, no sunshine really showing. And the only time you really saw sunshine was when we were out on the sea, seeing what was going on out in the ocean, with the ships coming in to help. Other than that, you really didn't see the sun. Everything was pretty bleak and stuff. So the cinematography, okay. I don't think it was the best. I saw better with other movies that I'll get into. But yeah, no. I don't know why Dunkirk would win anything. It was also up for best, I don't know what this is. Oh, sorry. Well, best cinematography, which I already said. And, best film editing, which, okay, it looked like it had been edited quite well. I never can tell with editing because I don't know what was taken out or what was put in. It looked like one fluid movie. So, okay, but I have yet to see a movie that doesn't look fluid, at least an A-type movie. Anyway, that is my rating on Dunkirk. Did not like it. I would not recommend it. I will not be seeing it again. One time was enough. Thank you. Have a great day, and I will see you next time.